Welcome back to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. With me today, I have Jessica Holder and Keenan Rice, owners of Eclipse Insurance out of DuQuoin, Illinois. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Good. Together, they opened Eclipse Insurance in 2018, and from what I can tell, they are growing very quickly. Keenan and Jessica, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting you know you a little better and hearing about your operation. So, like we always do, tell us a little bit about your insurance background and how you got into the insurance space.
Want me to go?
You can go first.
Okay. I started with a captive company. I grew up on a dairy farm in Southern Illinois. We're very rural. We're in a county of 20,000. The town has about 6 that's right here where we're at. And their closest metropolitan area is St. Louis, and it's about an hour and a half away. So very rural, Southern Illinois. And I got in the insurance business with Country Financial, which is a captive that's very, very prevalent in Illinois in the fall of 2006, and was there for 12 years. I enjoyed my time. Met a lot of wonderful people, had a lot of great training. I won't call myself a superstar, but I always was on the all-star team, kind of, won a lot of trips, had a lot of fun, had a lot of success. And that's kind of how I met Jessica. She also came on with Country, and she can kind of get you up to speed from there. But I started in 2006, so I'm 17 years into the business. 12 as captive, and now we're working in our 5th year as independent.
So I also was with captive Country Financial, and I started in 2016. I knew I wanted to do something that would give me income to be able to do other things, and Country was a great place I knew for training to learn more about the insurance portion of it. And I was really blessed to be around some superstars in that company and learn a lot more about their processes in the insurance business. So I credit a lot of my success with them, with the people that I worked with. I was on the National Advisory Council with them, won the trips, was very successful. I just followed processes, nothing groundbreaking there. And then Keenan and I got to know each other better, and then we, of course, both left Country in 2018.
I think the funny story on kind of how that occurred, we always knew each other because we're from the same area. And there was a recruiter from, we'll just say Big Red, which you can fill in the blanks, that, hey, there's an open small town that I worked in and she lived in about 15 miles from DuQuoin. And they called me, and I said, you know what? I'm going to hang out here in DuQuoin. I'm interested in the Big Red piece of business in my town, but I'm not looking to move over there. You need to call this person. She's in the insurance business, and I think she might be interested in that book that's going to be open. And they called her, and she referred them back to me. So the lady called me back and said, the strangest thing happened. You referred me to her, and she referred me to you. What's going on here? And I'm like, well, obviously neither one of us are interested in that. And so things just kind of built from there, and here we are today. So
with Country, what areas of business did you focus on? Was it personal or commercial?
Personal lines. Okay. They're big on life and financials, but it's really personal lines. Because of how late I was to the game, you can't go and get the existing business. Country Financial probably writes 60 to 70% of the farm business in Illinois. And so most people were already there. I couldn't really focus on farm at Country like I do now. That's my focus, is farm insurance. It's kind of our niche. We don't have a commercial niche, but that's our niche. And but primarily personal lines, life insurance, and investments. That's kind of what their game is, and that's how you win trips over there. So,
and I did a lot more in the life and financial department. Of course, you bring people in with the let us look at your home and auto, and then you discover needs from there.
Yeah. Keenan, you mentioned that you were, always on the all-star team with Country. So what led to, you feeling that you needed to find another path and move away from them?
I'm a creature of comfort. I had 3 boys that I was raising. And I was happy. I had a great job that gave me flexibility to set my own schedule, do the things I wanted to do. Was I getting rich? Absolutely not. Was I making a good income for the area? Absolutely. Past that, I didn't care much, but Jessica kind of said, hey, there's the whole world out there and we could do so much more. And eventually she won that argument, and we're in a lot better place long-term and short-term because of it. 5 years into it, it's been better than I never would have dreamed this was possible ever in a million years. Would have dreamed 5 years ago that we could be where we are today.
So Jessica, what led you to start looking elsewhere and start developing your own plan?
Well, I would rather be broke and own a $5 business than make $1 million a year building somebody else's dream.
Yeah.
I just can't. That's not for me. I've got to do my own thing. I've got other dreams beyond this insurance agency that I want us to be able to do, and working for somebody else on their schedule, building their dream isn't going to make those things possible.
Yeah. I first heard, I think it was Avery Moore out of Oklahoma, say, if you're not part of your own plan, you're a part of someone else's plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which that resonated with me, which is exactly, what you just, kind of led to. Yeah. So what did that look like? You decided I want to be part of my own plan. And so you started exploring then that, hey, maybe we can go this independent route.
Well, we were pregnant, and we were married and pregnant with our first child. And there had been some retirements and stuff in my area. And I kind of felt like, hey, I've paid my dues. You're giving all these books away. I want to cut. And I kind of pushed them to make a decision to help me or not. And they're like, no, we ain't helping you. You've been around a long time. We're bringing somebody else in off the street that they probably would have expected me to train because I had done a lot to help. And I didn't mind it. I loved helping people out. And so it was a very easy decision after some of that was made. I'm like, all right, well, we just need to get this done. And we kind of we knew what we wanted to do, but didn't have any details. And we did not want to do anything that could find us in legal trouble. So we really didn't do anything to open an agency before we quit what we had. We did very little groundwork or anything because I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. And one day I just called my manager and said, hey, it was Sunday night. And I said, hey, come to my office tomorrow morning. I need to talk to you. Well, what do you need? I said, just bring your truck. You're going to need it. And then as soon as that call was made, her manager found out because we were in a different area. And he kind of told her, I got a form for you to sign. I'm coming right over. And that was the end of it. And we went from 2 fully employed and
that quick,
well-recognized, well-respected captive agents to 2 unemployed people with a goal of starting an independent agency, but no idea what to do in just a few short days.
And it was a freeing day getting to leave that office after being under the thumb of corporate. It was wonderful.
Doesn't it feel like there's a weight lifted off your shoulders, immediately?
Mm-hmm.
So I was also a captive, went independent. And that was something I told people that always asked me, what's it like, on the other side. And I was, as I've talked about many times on the podcast, I was a farmer's agent. And when I left Farmers, I was there for 8 years. And I had a lot of farmers agents ask me, what's it really like on the other side? And that was something I told almost everyone, is that I feel like there's a weight lifted off my shoulders and it's never coming back. Of dealing with that bureaucracy of that company.
Well, and just clicking on a report and seeing how you stack up against your peers. And we had life expectations that were managed very heavily, and it was all about life insurance. What do you got? What do you got in the hopper? When can you expect this? This is falling off. Can you replace this? We're trying to win this trip. Can you get this to win this trip? Can you help me win a trip? Just a lot of pressure. And then there's still a lot of pressure naturally when you start from scratch. I mean, because we had our first kid and we had our auto policy, my parents' auto policy, and the preacher's home and auto policy enforced when we went to the hospital to have the first kid, with no money to buy diapers or formula or anything else when we walked out of the door of the hospital. So there's a lot of pressure there, but it's a pressure that I think is more rewarding, and I can deal with that better than somebody else just pushing, so.
Yeah. So walk me through that timeline that you both went from gainfully employed to now we're going to start our own. What did that look like from when you started your own agency?
Well, we had made a few calls. Like, I knew Travis Etheridge. I don't know if you know, he's Jason Cass's business partner,
Yep.
but I knew Travis. He was a part of my agency at Country, and I knew he was there a little bit, won a trip, and he was out of there. I knew he started an independent agent or was in an independent agency.
Yeah.
So kind of reached out to him and talked to a lot of the old Country agents. Hey, if you could do it different, would you go back and be independent? And most of them said, yeah, I think I'd have been better off that way. Some said, no, I don't think so. But so then it was, well, how do you get started? And the funny thing was, probably 5 years previous to this, I had a lady that worked for the IIA, Illinois Independent Street, IIA. And she came to the office and visited with me, and she was a recruiter for an SIAA network at this time. And I kind of blew her off, and I literally told her, I actually know what I'm doing, and I'm a captive agent, and we're already at the top of the food chain. Why would we take a step back to to be an independent? That was kind of the gist of what I told her. I don't want to take a step back. I'm already up here. I'm already in this pedestal, And she said, well, here's my card. Why don't you just put it in your desk, and one of these days you're going to call me and we'll talk. And so we called her. And and I just told Jessica, if it's somebody else that calls me back, or it's not her, or whatever, forget this route. We're going to go a different route. Well, I called and said, hey, you came to my office, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, I remember you there in DuQuoin. Yeah, well, maybe we want to talk now. And she met with us and kind of gave us some information. And, SIAA is very proud, as they should be very proud of their position when they come compared to other aggregators or alliances, networks, what have you. And they said, hey, we're the biggest, and here's the top 10. And so we'd already talked to the SIAA, it's VIAA out of St. Louis, and we've had a great experience with them. But I went through just burning up the phone trying to call all of the other people that fell in the Illinois territory, and not one person ever called us back. And then so we met with one of my older boys played baseball with this other kid whose mother-in-law owned a big agency. We met with them, and she said, hey, you need to talk with this big company and this broker. And then I had another friend that's in the insurance business, and he said, oh, let me get you hooked up with these two companies. Every time I would call, it was just like dead ends. And yeah, we don't care what you did in the captive world. We're not interested. It was just almost dead end after dead end, and nobody was calling back. So we were kind of left with nothing but the VIAA route. And we went and met him in St. Louis one day, and we felt really good about what they, the owners were right there of VIAA, and the lady who recruited us was right there. And we just felt good about what we were, getting offered. And, hindsight 2020, would you do it the same or would you do it different? It's easy to say what you do different after you've been there, but we literally had, other than we probably could have got Progressive. Yeah. What else were we going to do? So that's kind of how we got to the VIAA,
I did the same. I did the exact same thing. When I left, I knew I decided I wanted to go independent. I wanted to start my own independent agency. I didn't know networks existed. If I did, I Progressive was going to give me a contract. AAA was thinking about it, and nobody else would consider. I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I need a full arsenal. If I would have known there was networks or aggregators, I would have joined the first one that I talked to, most likely not read the contract and just looked at it and said, oh, you got 12 markets I can deal with? Sign me up. Probably made a terrible decision, but yeah. Yeah,
we really didn't understand the contract. And we've kind of went back and reviewed, and I've asked a lot of questions on how it works. And just, hey, thank God, by the grace of God, the first one we talked to was somebody that it's been a great fit for us. And we question it all the time. Is this where we need to be? Is this truly the best fit for us with the cost and the benefits we're getting? And it has been a great decision for us, but we could have just as easily got with one of the other ones that hey, you have to wait on them to send your money, and then you're on a split essentially.
Yeah.
So we've been very fortunate that we partnered with an SIA affiliate in our area here.
Yeah, good.
And they've been great, and they've really grown a lot in the last 3 years with the support they give for new agencies. We started scratch, and I don't think they were bringing a ton of scratch agents on at that time, agencies. Now they are bringing a lot of scratch agencies on, and they've really developed a system to support them and get them rolling, where our system was just trial.
That's an agency management system. These policies come in here. We don't need paper files anymore. I mean, what?
Yeah.
We didn't do any of that.
So tell me what it looks like. You decide you sign up with this network. Do we get office space and now what? Where do you go from there? How do you take off?
So we're actually in Keenan's office because he had his own lease in his building. So there we are. We have computers. Obviously, my computer I've had forever, and Keenan got a computer. Went out and bought a new computer, and then we have these carriers and a couple logins, and a lot of F-bombs were flying around. How do we quote this? We had to insure the homes to 100% now. It's just management system. We have to fill out this paperwork to get stuff to come in. We print it. We file it in these paper files.
Yeah, we got our first. Well, we had a contract with MetLife, maybe even in October of 2018. But they were just not very competitive at all until they launched that Agent 360 program, and most of us wish we never would have saw that. But hey, we brought a lot of business on through that. But we don't have to beat that dead horse. It's been beat a million times. But we got our Travelers contract turned on the 9th. I think on the 9th of November, and we had a baby on the 12th. So really, we got a contract turned on, wrote some business, went to the hospital, had a baby, and we got home from the hospital. I'm like, all right, you figure out this baby. And it was her first. I had 3 older kids. There's a little bit of an age difference, as you can tell, looking, but 10 years, But I had some older kids, and this was her first baby. Like, all right, well, you figure out that baby thing, and I'm going to try to figure out how to quote insurance. And like she said, it was a lot of very frustrating, a lot of waiting on hold, a lot of calling. How do I do this? There's no resources, nobody to call. Everybody is now your competitor, as opposed to in the captive world. They have great training systems. You can call the agent down the street because you're not in competition. They'll help you. Hey, let me show you how to run through that, do that, answer your questions. There is none of that in the independent world. And this was before we knew about IAOA. We hadn't really met any other agents. And we've met so many great supportive people since then.
Yeah.
But when you're new, and you don't know what you don't know. And it was just, screaming. And every person that walked in and wanted a quote even made it worse because I couldn't even figure out the last quote I was doing. How do we submit business? And then, after, I don't know, about a month, she would come in and start with the baby. So she was having to learn. She was a little behind me on my learning curve on how to quote and how to do all this, how to figure out a rater. And then we didn't even really do much at all with the management system till a year in. It's like, well, what's the point of this thing? We kind of saw here's some stuff in here, but what do you use it for?
Because at that point too, we're trying to bring money in because we had nothing. Yeah. So we're just, I'm going to use the phrase, we're haphazardly. Well, we know what the good coverage, but we're haphazardly selling it and filing it away. So really, like that year in, now we're like, okay, let's make sure all the downloads are turned on, and that's when we really started saying, now let's get this organized. And we actually brought our first person on after a year, and she came from an independent, and she said, what's with all these filing cabinets? You can just keep this all in the management system. And we were like, man, that sounds like a good job for you.
She showed how to make notes in a management system. She had 5 years experience with an independent agency, and we were younger and happened to pay her a little bit better at the time than what she was making. So she agreed to come over to us, and she taught us a lot, getting started. She was a big part of our success, and she was only with us 5 months. Yeah. And she had to leave, and we're still great friends with her. And one day she's going to come back and work with us. But she's got out of the insurance business for now, but she really taught us a ton of business, or a lot of working inside this independent space, because we just didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that by the time she came on in October, I was just completely over it. And I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you show up, I'm fried, I'm just done. So we wrote a ton of business from really in December of 2018
Mm-hmm.
is when we really got rolling, all the way through September, October, when we had somebody come to work for us and start. That's when I said, all right, I just got to have a breather. I'm going to take a couple months, not off totally, but I just was not pushing, just kind of taking what came.
Mm-hmm.
And then the older the baby get, the more Jessica was there, the more we started figuring out the whole, now we're into this thing we really don't understand.
And well, then we had another baby in December that year.
Yeah.
So Caitlin started in October, so then we had the next baby.
So they're only not quite 13 months apart.
Yeah. 12 months.
Okay.
So that was fun. So we grew our family a lot, and we've grown an insurance agency a lot. And then, of course, COVID happens, and that changes, I think, the way almost no matter how you did business before COVID, everybody changed the way they did business post-COVID, you know. And I think that was a blessing for us in a lot of ways. It forced us to definitely ditch the 1990s way of doing business, you know, or the early 2000s, and jump forward. And so now we're set up to, hey, if people are comfortable face-to-face, we can work with them, take care of it. They can call us on the phone, but we're also set up to text, email, whatever it is, you know, submit quotes online, you know, do their own customer service. So we can meet people where they are and do business the way they want to do business. So I know I stole that line from Bradley Flowers on his little commercial he does all the time, but yeah, we can meet them where they are and do business the way they want to do business. So it's really helpful.
True.
Yeah.
You know what it did force us to do that. It changed a lot of things in our agency for the better. You know, which was people that would stop in to make payments, they could no longer do it. And after that, I said, oh no, we're not going back to that. People adapted, and it's better for us. And, you know, so that was, you know, one change we made. So I think one thing just about everybody takes for granted when they go from captive to independent is the number of things that are actually taken care of by the captive carrier, whether it's management system, commissions, and that's something that we have to grow into and learn. You know, like you said, you had this management system and, you know, didn't utilize it all, didn't know about notes, and you had to have somebody show you. It's just completely common. Because we don't know, you know, you grow up learning the business under the captive. You think there's one way to do the insurance business. You go independent and you see all these different rules and guidelines. And it's the whole thing is eye-opening.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. And there's so much. It is like drinking water from a fire hose. It just
Absolutely. Is. Yeah. It is. It's a lot. I mean, I tell people that are interested in doing this, you can't fathom the additional things that are going to be dumped in your lap when becoming an agency owner compared to being just an agent. And I am just an agent who's been forced into this role and trying to survive. I'm not a great agency owner, but Jessica's great on the back end stuff. And I'm really just an insurance agent who's hoping we can grow this big enough so I can go back to just being an insurance agent, but one that can write checks anytime I want to myself, right? So
let's touch on that. Let's tell me what your roles look like within the agency.
I mean, mine's the quickest. I'm just the insurance agent, and I write farm insurance, and I go out and shake hands, kiss babies. You know, I do the basketball announcing in town, do a lot of work with volunteer foundations and fundraisings, and I'm the MC of some events, and as she is as well. So I just try to drive people to the agency and get them in so our people can take care of, do quotes, write business. And I'm an insurance agent, and that's and then I pay the bills and process the payroll, but that's kind of what I do. And those are necessary tasks, but the growth that we have and the growth that we can count on in the future, it ain't going to happen with the things I do. Those are necessary tasks that I do, but you can only get so big and do so much before it all falls apart with just those things. So Jessica can tell you about all the things she does that are too numerous to count and things I would absolutely hate to have to do.
And
so.
Keenan has to be here because he brings in the money, so I can spend it in the agency. So also, he knows far more about coverage and all the ins and outs and technicalities than I ever knew. I was always just kind of like, I knew it. I covered people well. I was a salesperson. I sold what was in front of me and just kind of figured it out as I went. But Keenan's the real deal. He knows what he's doing. So with that being said, initially I started selling with the agency also because when you start, here's advice, just sell stuff, make money. And then after a year, once you can step back and take a look and say, okay, let's slow this shit down. We know we're going to have to turn it around some direction to the right way. So let's do this. So I manage all of our carrier relationships and our tech relationships. I audit processes with the staff. So I might just pop into the system, make sure they've taken notes, make sure they've moved somebody, because we use a CRM agency Zoom, make sure they're moving them from point A to point B. Make sure before we had a VA, make sure payments were entered correctly for brokered policies, and train them in the system. So if there's an issue like, hey, my phone's not working on Ring Central. Okay, let me look at it. Let's reset it. So the IT person kind of too. And eventually I'd like to do a little more of the sales training.
What made you, determine that we need to have these processes? Or did you just, have the business sense that we need to have processes in place?
I've always operated by processes. I don't know, maybe that's a quirk. Like I have to have a step and a pattern that I do things. And I've been in the restaurant business before. I've managed a restaurant. So everything was about processes. And in my agency before with Country, everything was processes. And I sold and I did well because I did the exact same thing every single time. So that's how I know. Plus, I know we can get more done if we do the exact same thing every single time, and we can check the work of the people that work with us if we're doing the exact same thing every time.
Right.
So it all comes back to that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's so wise. I think most of us or a lot of us that evolve into this role neglect that. I did. I didn't have until I was, I built and built and built and then built this team. And then realized we have no processes. One's doing it this way, one's doing it that way. Much more difficult to build after you've already, established a way of doing business. So no, it's fantastic that that's what you do. And everybody needs to establish that. It's one thing. The whole premise behind this podcast is to help, agency owners like us that evolve into an agency to become more of a business owner instead of an insurance agent. And we usually identify that on the back end of it. We grow this insurance business and then realize we're a business. We have employees. We are a bona fide business, but we don't view ourselves as that. In a lot of cases, some of us are much better than others. So I think you guys having a partnership in that way that distributes the roles, it's outstanding. And we all have our strengths in weaknesses. So, and there's nothing wrong with Keenan's, saying, I'm the producer and this is my strength. That still has a strength to the team of teaching coverages and has it. So to have that is wonderful.
Well, I was going to say that starting from scratch, starting from nothing, if your ship's sailing one way, and a lot of people that come into agencies that are existing second, third, fourth generation, and then they have to make that definitive moment of, okay, we've been going this way for so long, and we're going to have to change the way we do business if we're going to continue to be successful. And that is a task in itself, because you don't turn around a locomotive or an ocean freighter overnight,
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're able to build the processes we have from the beginning. So it's a lot easier to change your processes when you got $1 million or $2 million in premium than it is when you got 10 million, 12 million, 20 million.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, and I heard somebody mention, I think it would be awesome to start from scratch. And I thought, well, not until you crash your credit score, run up a few $30,000 in credit card debt, have to take out a second mortgage, and can't pay your bills and got to constantly worry about being in default on something. Yeah, it sounds great to start from scratch, but there are some drawbacks to it as well. But
Yeah.
we were fortunate that that it took a lot to get going, but we're in a great place right now. We're very fortunate. Had, I guess, the combination of both of us has given us a huge advantage over other agency owners, in my opinion.
In the beginning, did you ever question, did we make the right choice?
She didn't, but I did.
I knew we
Yeah.
made the right choice. We got away. I mean, I could be eating ramen noodles for the next year. 2 years, I didn't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah. And that's the difference of people, a person that wants to start their own business, right? Is that I need to do this to breathe. I mean, the money, I believe that it's going to work, and I believe that, success is going to come, but I'll be poor for a while or do what I have to do to get there. So,
yeah, that's the big, I mean, it made me very nervous because I'm always the person that tends to worry more about money. And if you're starting your agency from scratch like we did, I mean, we really didn't have anything other than we got the bank somehow to approve us for a mortgage that was all we're going to pay for it based on the what ifs if we can sell business.
yeah.
It's very nerve-wracking for me. I don't like buying groceries on credit cards and waiting until the last second to make card payments and letting your cell phone go to the last second and stuff bouncing back and forth out of your checking account saying, hey, the money wasn't there. But, you gotta, I tell people all the time that want to get into a business like this, or just young kids, eventually you got to pay the piper. If you want to own something that's significant, something that's an income stream, something that's an asset that if you ever wanted to, you could sell, you don't get that by being comfortable your whole life.
No.
You can pay the piper while you're young, take a step back and get yourself to a better position farther on. And then we talk to just an unlimited number of captive agents thinking about making the transition. And I tell every one of them the same thing. If you're walking through the woods and you come up to a big creek and you want to get to the other side of the creek, you can't just try to make a standing long jump there. You got to take a lot of steps back and get a run at it to jump across. I mean, you can break through the glass ceiling that I think most all captive agents are, whether they want to admit it or not. There's a glass ceiling. You can only do so well for yourself. And there's a very, very few who do better than that, But with the independent side, you really have to take a step back and get a run at it and find a way to jump across. And for us, we didn't have that spouse that was working, making 80 or 100 grand a year, a nurse or a office, marketing person or whatever that is. It was both of us, and we just kind of quit our jobs and still had car payments and house payments and bills.
Pregnant.
And you did what you did. And we took a big hit in a lot of ways, but at the same time, now we're able to live a lifestyle, and we're just now getting to the good stuff in year 5. And it's mind-boggling when you look at what we've been able to do, and there's really nothing that's going to throw it off course in the future. We're going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's exciting when we think about what the future holds, but it definitely wasn't easy. It definitely was not a low-stress environment. It took a lot of stress and a lot of hard work and a lot of sleepless nights. And hey, how do you
you had 2 babies in the first 2 years of your business.
We have 3 now. We have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So we've had 3 kids since we started the agency. We've had 3.
Yeah, but you got it now. I mean, shoot.
Still stressful, but we're making it.
What? Okay. Over the course of the last 5 years, what are some of the largest challenges that you've encountered of owning your own agency?
Staffing. I know that's the classic answer, and I think we've learned some hard lessons. We went in, and I think we had these people that we knew that we said, we weren't testing them or anything at this time. We've gotten programs since then, but we're like, these people, they can do this. Let's get them their own assistant, pay for their assistant and all this, get them a location, and not a great deal to take. Okay.
We've made a couple.
Lost some money on that one.
Yeah.
But now we know, and you know what, the business that they wrote, now it's gonna pay it up anyway
Yeah.
on renewals. So
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so these
lost a
were
lot of money at
producers.
the time. We couldn't afford to lose it,
Mhm.
trying to bring producers on. And my feeling is we're trying to actually bring a producer on now. You know, when you're starting out, it's, hey, you need producers, you need producers, you need producers. But until you got a continuous stream of income and the support staff to really support them, you can't just bring a producer on right out of the gate. You know, you might do it, but you're probably going to have an experience like us, and it's going to be a failed deal. Now, we're eventually going to make that money back that we lost, but it's going to take some time, you know. So
did you set up the producers and then put them in their own location?
we have in the past.
Okay.
We kind of were copying like a captive model type of deal, and we had a couple different contracts. We did this with 2 different people, and they were a little bit different, and we're looking at doing this again in a much smarter, controlled way, but we have the funds to support the person, and we will really evaluate this person's personality and you know, put something hard and fast in that contract. This is it. Here it is. If it's not there, we're done.
Have you put anybody through any personality testing or anything like that with anybody that you've had?
Not yet, but we recently got the program Total CSR.
Okay.
Which is not only has that personality test, but has really great training modules, and you can build your own modules in there as well.
Okay. What have you had luck with your support staff?
Yeah. We have, in addition to us, we have 4 full-time support staff here, and then we have the VA in the Philippines, and we have 4 wonderful people. We don't have any true salespeople, but the idea is I can bring them in, get them in the door, and then they kind of collect the information, do the quotes, take over. We use Agency Zoom for the automated emails, the automated text to kind of keep stuff going. And then a lot of times if I get a little free time, I'll start at the bottom on what's the oldest quote we got, start calling out, hey, what do we need to do to push this across the finish line? What are you waiting on? When they smart cycle them in, a lot of times I'll make that initial call. Hey, we talked to you before about insurance. Hey, it's been a lot of changes. Can we go ahead and brush up that quote? Is the information still the same? Here's what we had before. So it's kind of I can kind of come in and help them push some of those across the finish line. And we have one that specializes in commercial insurance. And then we have one that kind of focuses on renewals. And right now with the renewals, that's kind of an all hands on deck because there's so many renewal increases we're working with. Yeah. And then we have 2 kind of, I guess you'd say office leaders that do a lot of personal lines. Yeah. So.
And what's fun now is we're starting to see some leadership qualities in people. And one person in particular that I think in the next couple of years as our staff grows, she's probably going to, I could see her taking on a different role to manage.
Nice. That was something I didn't really find that characteristic in a lot of my staff people. I've had a great staff. But I couldn't really find much in a leadership type role or, personality. So that's huge. That's huge. You want somebody to evolve and grow within the company. That'd be fantastic. You mentioned the VA. I know we talked about it a little bit before we jumped on. What kind of things are you using your VA for?
So right off the bat, because she understood now certs, I trained her. They know now certs, but you have to train them in your processes, right?
Yeah.
So she reconciles agency commissions for us, handles all of the downloads, producer commissions, and I'm actually training her this month on that because I'm giving her, just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And she handles endorsements and policies that do not download in. So we've really been putting more commercial on the board recently, and we have
almost sneezed. Yeah,
we're good. Yeah. So, and we track that through Agency Zoom. So if we have a service pipeline for that. So specifically, mostly Dawn, who does our commercial, when there's a commercial endorsement, she drops it into a pipeline in Agency Zoom, and then Jazel, our assistant VA, sees that, then takes it and makes the change and moves it to completed. So then we can also track how much work she's doing through agency Zoom as well and see where that is. She is training in quoting, mostly renewals, to help our renewal specialists. So we're taking it one company at a time. Because she's been here since February, so we're rolling slow. So we trained her, St. Erie, and then Openly, and then Max, and we're just going down that line because eventually, probably later this year, we will have another VA because we'd like to get more quoting and data entry to those VAs, and then that way, Jaja can help us train that new person.
How did your team adapt to the VA? Because I hear a lot of people say, and mine was no different. There was, for most on my team, there was a reluctance to utilize the VA and pass off work. Did you see that with your group at all?
Well, I was reluctant from the start about the whole thing. So, but I've kind of learned how to do that. And the biggest thing she started doing was all of the daily tasks, because I didn't realize just the volume of endorsements and downloads that come into a management system daily. And, we have her looking at the expired policies list. We have her looking at the pending cancellations list. And I didn't realize just how many things came in that just had to be matched up to file on a daily basis, because I didn't understand that stuff. And I was hesitant, but, she's gotten better and taken things off her plate, with, unfortunately, anytime you write farm, I don't know of any farm policies really, very few that actually download in. So anytime you do an endorsement, I have to, print the new updated deck page or endorsement page or whatever and put it in the endorsement pipeline for her, and she can update policy on the system. So I use that, but I was, hesitant from the start, and I've become to embrace it. And I think the other people, they were, I don't know, suspect. I don't think they've never had a reason to think, all right, is this the person that's going to take our place? Because that's never been the case, and they had no reason to feel that way. But there's probably some like, hey, all she's doing is asking me questions. You're going to have her do this, but then we're just getting blown up with questions. But, you got to, it's kind of like starting a business. You got to answer the questions and spend the time with them initially, so then you don't have to do it later on. They know. Because
she's training just like anybody else.
Correct.
Yeah. Even though she knows now certs and she can look up how to use programs, every agency has a different process and system. So in quoting, some agency standards are, if somebody comes in with a deck page that says 5,100, no problem, 5,100. Well, she asks about that because we don't quote less than 100, 300.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. And as of right now, she's not client facing. This gives our staff more time to actually spend that one-on-one on the phone with clients. And now our staff really sees, hey, I don't have to touch this stuff in the management system now, because everybody hates the management system. Everybody thinks it's all broken. All the management systems maybe they suck. I don't know, but I think the general consensus is no one likes to do anything in there. So once the staff says, hey, I don't have to do that anymore, it's a win.
Yeah, we had the exact same issue of questions coming back, and it was new for my team too. One thing that was new for them was just delegating work. They've always had work delegated to them and never really delegated it out. So I looked past that to realize that, I have to explain to them how we delegate and how clear and detailed we need to be, because she can't read your mind, just as I learned that you can't read my mind when I'm going to delegate something. So we had to learn that. And then they also had to deal with a lot of the questions that came back. I'm like, well, this is brand new to, a lot of this we have to train her. She's like, no, just like any other new employee that there's so many nuances in insurance. We have to explain all these details. And now I'm asking you to, be the trainer. So really an interesting experiment to the whole, virtual assistant.
Well, one of the things that I struggle with, when I was a captive, I ran my own show. I mean, I had a part-time person that worked 10 or 12 hours a week, just in case I wanted to go fishing or my kids were playing baseball. I could have somebody to answer the phone, take notes, and maybe make an auto change or collect information. Maybe they could do a quote, maybe they couldn't, but I didn't care. I ran my own show. I didn't need to take notes because I knew everything. I have a lot less, now, we have well over probably 4 times the business that I managed by myself as a captive, and just the volume of everything from claims to customer service, phone calls, text messages, emails is just overwhelming to try to get accustomed to. But I wasn't very good at documenting anything because I didn't need to. And I get chewed all the time by Carly because you talked to that person, but did you put a note in the file? How are we supposed to know what you talked about? And our focus, I think, for both of us is some people want it all to be about them. You'll notice our agency is not named after us or our town or nothing identifiable. We don't really want that. I mean, we want to grow a business that runs if I'm in the hospital or Jessica's in the hospital and we're unable to do anything, whether we're gone, whether we're there, something that can run without us, because I think those are the most valuable agencies, the one that doesn't need the owner, Yeah. And so we want it to run independently. And my hope is that someday we're sitting somewhere at a ball game or some event. Somebody says, so what do you do for a living? Well, we own an insurance agency. And they say, really? Which insurance agency? We own Eclipse Insurance agency. Well, that's where we got our insurance. And there's 2 people, they didn't have any idea we owned the insurance agency they did business with. And we had no idea that they had insurance with our agency. And it's not that we don't value our customers or want to focus on our customers or pay attention to our customers. It's just you can only get so large and know every customer. It has taken a long time for me to get used to not knowing every single customer, but now I can accept that. And one of the things that I do, and that sometimes I get behind and got to do a lot of calls to catch up. I heard Troy Korsgaard give he was on a podcast or something and talked about just doing something as simple as making a phone call to all new business that comes in to say, hey, my name is Keenan. I own this agency along with my wife. You purchased a product in our assessor office from Sadie. We hope it was a wonderful experience. We just want you to know how much we appreciate your business and anything else we can help you with. And something that simple, some people really, really, really appreciate that, So that's something I try to do. I don't want to get involved and become their best friend. Not that I wouldn't want to be their best friend, but I just wanted to know that we appreciate it and we have a little bit of connection, to each and every client that comes on. But now we're getting to the point, the volume is so much. Now we're like, should we just record a voicemail and do a voicemail drop for this? Because, again, the volume of the amount of new business coming in and the amount you have on the books is getting so large that it's like, man, it's just a lot,
That reminds me exactly of, and I just went to one of my favorite steak restaurants. It's an old Italian char house by us that I've been going to forever. And they still have, we were just there on Sunday, and the owner still stops by the table.
Yeah, we have an Italian restaurant in our town where, leading up to COVID, every time you sat down, either the owner or one of his 2, and the owner's passed away now, but his sons have taken over naturally. I think they took over before he was gone. But every time you sat down, it's called Alongi's is the name of the business. And every time you sat down, an owner would walk by and ask how your food is and how the experience was and make sure you were okay. And it's a very well-known, it's been in business over 100 years. And it's they've had anybody and everybody from Johnny Carson to Jack Buck come in and eat in their restaurant, and they always had that touch of stop by, see how it is. They didn't, they weren't getting sodas and bussing tables and cooking food in the back, but they were there making sure things were running properly and people were happy,
That meant a lot. That meant a lot to me. And I even, cause I noticed just, I'm just passionate about businesses and how they operate in general. And in this scenario, so we had a pretty big group, and there was this the table was kind of in a U. So it was essentially 3 different tables. And he stopped by like every little location to ask, just touch in, everything going okay, everything tasting okay. I thought that was an incredible, nice touch. So your phone call, if you can continue that, I think that's an extremely nice touch. And it means a lot, I think.
And I'm finding out from we start another pipeline we started because we've brought on different things slowly with agency Zoom, but we want to use it to its fullest potential, And so we brought on a claims pipeline, and I try to make a follow-up call. We have the text and emails that go out automatically from whoever files that claim and sets that up. But then I try to make a phone call somewhere along the way towards the end of the claim. Now what you run into all the time, well, we got our check and we're not getting our car in the shop till June. I try to make a phone call just to reach out and make sure that process went smoothly. Is there any questions you have? Do you know that if you have a question or something doesn't sound right, you can feel free to give us a call. We don't we don't decide on coverage. We don't write checks, but we can help make sure that you better understand what you're being told by adjusters, because let's face it, the claims experience today and the claims experience 5 years ago is drastically different. Yeah. And you can have a claim with one company and have a great adjuster, and it's the most wonderful experience ever. You can file the next claim with the same company, have a different adjuster, and it's an absolute shit show, if I can say that on air. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just the individual you get to have that claim is going to dictate the claims experience you have. And we just want people to know that you buy the insurance in case you have a claim, and we want to make sure they know that we're here to support them if they're using that insurance. But now we're kind of working with that as far as the timelines on when the messages go out, and how many we need to call, and is there a level of we need to call this person but not this person. But I try to be that front person. I think most people really appreciate that hear this guy that they don't know, that they have no idea who is an owner of the agency, calls to make sure they're happy. People really appreciate that.
Yeah, it'd be huge. If you can do that, I would love to be able to do that. Again, I don't want to start a process that I can't continue with. And I've done that a number of times, but
from here on out, it worked great. Why'd you quit doing it? Because it worked so good. We're never doing it again.
I know you guys are under a time crunch, so I don't want to keep you over. I do want to ask you one last thing. What would you like to improve on for Eclipse Insurance in 2023?
I think we've implemented a lot of new systems in the last year. I think we really need to this year just look down at each individual process, make sure everyone completely understands it and why we do it, and see if there's another way we can simplify it.
Yeah.
Just really polish up those systems and processes, and to decrease keystrokes for our staff as well.
Yeah, that is fantastic to audit what you're doing. I mean, that's great. I want to thank you guys, both you guys, for your time. I know
I want to write more business in 2023.
That too.
Well, we've been very fortunate, and I think almost every year has been, a little better than the one before, and maybe hopefully this will be our best year ever for new business. So we'll see.
All right. I hope so. All right. I can't wait to hear how it goes. And I really hope to meet you guys in person sometime. So some convention. Yeah, I would love to meet you guys in person.
Well, thank you for your interest in our agency. We appreciate it. And
this has been great.
Something that we say encourages somebody, or what I find is when you get on podcast and when you get in the insurance superstar world, it's always the same. Hey, this person knows everything. Everything's perfect. Everything's great. They're killing it. What's wrong with me? And we try to be very honest, where it's, hey, that ain't the case, man. We're screwing up. We're hitting walls. We're not doing things right. We're having We're having to learn things the hard way. So we hope just hearing from a real world agency experience of people that have had some success and a lot of failure and are still moving forward and excited about the future. Hopefully it encourages somebody, to take that step or to keep stepping forward, both of them, to take that step to become an agency owner or to keep moving forward as an agency owner and not throw in the towel.
We covered a lot here, and you guys' story, which I love, when you went from, and you had nothing.
Yeah.
You were pregnant and moved forward, and she knew this is what I wanted to do. And fast forward, you went through a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of stress. Fast forward 5 years, and now, and you're seeing it. You've probably been seeing it, before. It didn't take you 5 years, to get to where you're at now. But now you're starting to see, the fruits of your labor, and that it was worth it, and you wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. No, everything had a purpose, and I think the biggest thing was when we agreed to do this, she agreed that they could take her car, repossess her car before my truck. So I said, just be ready to see that BMW on a rollback and wave bye-bye at it, because I'm keeping my truck.
All right, you guys, I'll get this thing wrapped up.
Got repo, so we're happy there.
Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast, and we'll see you next week.